Okay. And my mystery guest,
Yeah,
Miss Tracy.
I am here
I
in the
know,
dark.
in the dark.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just go to share the screen and let's have a look.
So I decided to take him out onto the just the driveway area because I was finding it so hard to get him moving in the arena. Um,
Mm-hmm. Do you want to look
as
at
you'll
that one
see through the
first?
no, I didn't actually record it in the arena. I only did it when we're out in the driveway anyway. So, but you'll see he does stop a few times, so you'll see what I mean.
Okay. Let me go
Yep.
back. Let's look at the first. They're labeled one and two. Does it matter? Which?
Not really. No, it's very much same.
Okay. So let's look at this one. Looks like number one is in the arena
Hmm.
and he's got his boots on.
Yeah, because I had him trimmed the day before, and he was when I walked him that day, he was quite tender, so I put his boots on.
Okay. And then the email you sent me that he's been a little snarky about being touched, a little unhappy about even being
Yeah,
groomed.
and that's not uncommon for him. So I don't know whether he just doesn't like being brushed, and he's quite willing to tell me about it, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to someone else could probably brush him and he wouldn't do anything. I don't know what that means. But he's quite willing to tell me not to do it. And yeah, he gets quite snarky. He pins his ears and he kind of
Mm-hmm.
turns around and gives me, that stink eye as if get away from me. Don't touch me
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
And that kind of goes hand in hand with the lack of forward, actually, because a lot of horses that, well, I should say, the only reason any horse loses the desire to go forward is a comfort issue. How involved
Mm-hmm.
that comfort issue becomes is, that's where you have to peel through layers and kind of take one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But like he's with horses that are more anxious, typically, well, I shouldn't say that. They can be just as uncomfortable. But the horses that tend towards aggressive behavior in any way, shape, or form, even the mild versions, and they lack
Mm-hmm.
forward, it's not only sort of just the fight defensive strategy, which is what they choose because they don't like moving, but the problem is compounded because they're not comfortable moving. So with
Yeah.
the email you sent me, it made sense that he also doesn't like to be touched. That
Mm-hmm.
kind of goes hand in hand with that sort of profile. And
Yeah.
and the only things I suggested to check out are because it's pretty extreme that a horse doesn't even want to be hand walked. Like the amount of sort of the
Mm-hmm.
degree that he resisted going forward is
Mm.
pretty significant. And that's usually why I take the work back to something so simple like leading or the hand walking and just try to let them find, with very, very gentle guidance, some comfort and some stability going forward. So I'm
Yep.
looking at this video as we're talking, and this is the kind of the best I've seen him do so far. And this is out in
Yeah.
the driveway.
Yeah. This is out in the driveway. I mean, he and my email was very dramatic. I do apologize. I was having a bit of a meltdown that day about it all.
Oh, yeah, as
And
we do.
now I kind of and now I kind of reflect, and I do think he definitely is improving. 0.005%, I suppose, per week.
Hmm.
And maybe it's me not seeing that. Not that I'm not in a rush to get him anywhere, but I suppose I just get a bit caught up in the whole is he ever going to be okay saga.
No, and that's why I
Um,
think like starting up together, I do think it's a great idea that we meet every couple of weeks. Um,
mhm.
because to check in and look at the progress and keep things on track, but also like I see the horses every other time we meet. And so it's really been about a month in between since the last videos I looked at with Pablo. And that's
Yeah.
always helpful because, like, even I videotape some of my horses here in the training barn. And because I see them every day, it's hard to realize if
Yeah.
they're making progress or not.
Yep.
And when you're really progressing, it's also kind of a funny thing. I always tell people it's good to document, even if it's a list of problems you have. It's like write it down or take video,
Mm-hmm.
because the only way we see progress a lot of times is in hindsight, because
Yeah.
every single training session they're changing. And so we just don't really notice it day to day. We have to kind of look back.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I can
So,
definitely see a difference in his body. Even when he's standing in the paddock, he looks a bit different. He
mhm.
holds his head lower. He seems to have a looser neck underneath. So, I can definitely see some changes. We're just, yeah.
And so him getting stuck right here in the video, what's interesting about it
Hmm.
is his ears half back, that the ears sort of turned outward like that is a very it's a sign of introspection. And
Right.
so he's thinking about something when he wants to stop and his ears are kind of halfway out like that, because if they're turned backwards, he's sort of looking at something behind him.
Hmm.
If they're kind of turned away from you, you can tell when his mind kind of goes somewhere. But and
Yep.
even while he's walking, do you see most of the time the ears are
Yeah.
sort of just turned out?
Sideways.
Yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a very introspective expression for horses. Like he's
Right.
really starting to consider what he feels internally. And you can tell, like the ears always kind of tell you where the eyes are looking. So, or not so much the eyes, but you could say wherever his mind is focused is where the ears are going to
Hmm.
point. And
Hmm.
that sort of half out position of the ears means he's really thinking inside. And again,
Yeah.
once he
Yeah.
gets going here, that was some of the like most forward going walk I've seen him pull out yet.
Yeah. Yep. He's just seen the boogeyman in the bush there,
Yeah.
something. So he stopped. Yep. And
No,
just going back to your email that you sent, where you suggested I have him tested for Lyme's and EPM, I think it was. I
mm-hmm.
checked. I checked with my vet. I don't think we have EPM in Australia,
Oh,
and yeah, and he didn't think it would be Lyme's. I don't know why, but anyway, he didn't think it'd be Lyme's. But he did give me some. What was the tablet you suggested?
Equiox.
Equiox, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have that, but he gave me something similar. So his first dose was today. So it'd be interesting this afternoon when I work him to see if that, I don't know how long it takes effect. But
Oh, good. It takes effect right away. It's like
oh
being
yeah,
on, I
like
think for
Panadol or something.
even a little more so. It's more like we have a prescription medication for people called Celebrex, and
Right, okay. Yeah.
and then they made the same medication for dogs. It's called Previcox, and the vets
Oh,
used to
that's what we've got. That's what he's
Previcox.
on.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So that's what we used to do before Equiox came on the market, was the vets would give us the horse dosage of the Previcox. And it's the
Yep.
same medication. They just repackaged it as Equiox for the horse business. And
Ah, okay. Yes.
the the dog dosage of that medication is substantially more than what horses can take.
Is that right? And
Hmm.
yet they're tiny. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
because it was only
horses,
one tablet per day, and it's tiny tablet. So I
yeah, it
kind of
should
thought,
be
well,
about
that's not
like
much.
52 milligrams, something like that, I think is the dosage for horses. But that should
Yeah.
help right away. And
Mm,
and if you don't have EPM, that's the only reason I mention both Lyme's and EPM, is when
mm-hmm,
I have horses that are a little bit extreme in their responses,
mm-hmm,
um, like his the level of difficulty he's had just sort of walking in regular work,
Mm.
it can speak to a lot of different things. But when I've had horses that aren't sort of coming through the training at a normal, at somewhat normal pace, like there's such a range that every horse is going to go through this
Yeah,
training,
yeah.
but there's a little bit
Something's
of a,
holding them.
yeah, when I feel like a horse isn't really calming down, they're staying hypersensitive, or they can't slow down, or they can't get going forward, that usually tells me there's maybe something undiagnosed going on. Or and
Hmm.
that can lead to a level of pain that we have no idea about. And that's where
Yeah.
if you start with that Previcox, then that kind of works. It's like a very, very strong Tylenol, like a prescription strength Tylenol. And so it's
Hmm.
just going to help him be more comfortable because it could be a gazillion different things. And you don't
Yeah.
even have to know why, because hopefully the training program and the exercise, he starts to work through it. But
Yes.
the stuckness that he was showing before either
Hmm.
shows like a severe weakness, and I mean really severe through the core muscles, or some kind of pain issue that nobody knows anything about yet. And so that's
Hmm.
why the Lyme's test and the EPM tests are both just blood work. And
Yep.
they're kind of one of both of those are diseases that, like, I've never seen two horses have the same symptoms for Lyme's. It's a
Yeah.
bizarre, it's a really bizarre illness. So when things
Yeah.
are just kind of weird or strange, that's one of the things we test for here. It's not as big a problem in Florida as it is sort of up in northeastern side of the United States, but it's
Hmm.
tick-borne. So any place we have
Yeah.
ticks, we have limes.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then EPM is a protozoa that we get out of possum poop and sometimes raccoon
Ah,
droppings and things like that. So they end up ingesting the protozoa when they're grazing.
right. Yep. Yeah. Well, we have possums. Um, yeah. And ticks.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have heard of Lyme's disease. I don't think it's as prevalent perhaps in Australia, but I've definitely heard of it.
Well, let's
So,
kind
and
of
he's,
watch him because the easiest thing to
yeah,
start with is get him on the Previcox and see if it makes a difference. And if it
yeah,
if
yeah,
it does, it could just be muscular skeletal pain. It could just
yeah,
be
yeah.
weak core muscles, or just like all of us over 30, we're riddled with arthritis at a certain point, but it doesn't have to be debilitating. It could just be what's hindering him getting started. Do you know what I
Yes,
mean?
yeah,
So if
yeah.
the
And
Previcox helps, then he should pick up the pace with what he offers you in a training session.
yeah, 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 that's going to be really interesting the next 2 weeks. I think he can only be on it for 14 days. So the vet said. So we'll
Really?
see how it goes. Yeah,
I had
I don't
one of
know
my
why.
horses that we finally got diagnosed with kissing spine, and it was congenital, so it wasn't something I was looking for.
Yeah.
He lived on the Equiox for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Right. So I might have to have a chat
well,
with my
I
vet
mean,
then
I'm
to see if
talking,
something.
we're talking from opposite sides of the globe. So, go with what
Yeah,
your vet says.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think I don't want to say my vet. My vet's fantastic, but I think vet science perhaps in Australia is a bit behind maybe the US vet
Uh,
science.
well, we'll just kind of throw spaghetti against the wall and sort of see what
Yeah,
sticks.
see how we go.
But
Yep.
maybe keep that Lyme's test in your back pocket if he doesn't
Hmm.
start to, like, with the amount, because it's been about 2 months we started with him. Is that correct? Or 3 months?
Maybe even three, I think. Three
Okay.
months. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I notice in this video is, and we'll go over everything I'm kind of seeing, but
Mm-hmm.
he definitely looks more awake. He doesn't look so sort of like
Shut down.
Eeyore-like. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, you know how he kind
Yeah.
of would come in and he'd be a little bit like Eeyore, like, do I have to? Is this what we're really doing? And maybe
Yep.
it's because you got him out of the arena, but
Mm-hmm.
he definitely seems more alert and more involved in what you're doing. So
Yes.
that tells me he feels a little better.
Yeah. Yep.
And then again, when he's stopping here, when they lower the head and sort of get that sleepy look in their eyes and the ears turn half back, that's when
Mm-hmm.
I do give them a minute, and
Okay.
I call it a thinking break. It's almost like the nervous system is sort of catching up a little bit. Like there's
Ah.
a delay. And so what you can
Right.
do when you work with him, because part of his changing his coordination and coming back into his body, he may have a lot of those. And that to me isn't a resistance of forward. It's almost like, um,
Processing all.
yeah, processing. Exactly. It's like the
Yeah.
nervous system is processing. And so, like right there, you could leave him be for a minute. And
Mm-hmm.
if he shortens the neck and the ears prick away, you go, okay, now it's time to go back to work.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Yep.
if he's kind of got his head down and looks a little sleepy and the ears are back, what you might find is if you let him stand there, he may suddenly blow or lick and chew or yawn or offer to step forward before you ask.
Yeah.
Because
Okay. Yep.
it's a little bit like it's as deep as what they do when we give them body work.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I was working him yesterday, and I did know like he does that a lot. Well, he stops a lot, obviously, but he does have that look where he's kind of goes internal and he's
And he's
thinking about
thinking.
things. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
did wait yesterday, and he did. He blew and licked and chewed, so that was good. So yeah, I'll do that more often. Then whenever I see that look, I'll
yeah.
just
And
wait for him.
as soon as he's distracted or as soon as
Hmm.
he's done, I like what you're doing, leading him off to the side when he gets a bit stuck and you're kind of using the flag. But it's almost
Yep.
like he goes, no, I still need to think about this. And then there he chews and licks, and now he goes, okay, I can move forward. So
Yeah.
I really think, and then while he's walking, he's very much internally focused, like he's
Mm.
really figuring things out. And I know it doesn't sort of look like much, but this is a really big deal for this horse to
Yeah.
to sort of, he's not freaking out because you're outside the arena, but he's perked up a little bit, maybe because you're outside of the arena, and maybe because he's just feeling better moving in his own skin.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and
Does he look a little straight to you?
I was going to say not necessarily straight, but more stable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now, like there, when he does that, I would ask him to move on. Like that kind of
Yeah.
expression was a distraction. And that's when I would
Yes.
say, no, come on, let's move on. And even with his ears on you and looking left and right, that would be the
Yep.
moment I would sort of urge him to move forward.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. So the only time he gets to rest is when he's
yeah,
internalizing and thinking about things. But yeah. Okay. Yep.
yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah. So if he like ears half back, eyes closed, sleepy look, neck kind of long, let him have as long as he wants, and then he'll probably yawn or lick and chew, or maybe even, like I said, offer to step forward. And if he doesn't,
Yeah.
you can ask gently to start getting him to go forward. But when he stops with this expression that we're looking at now, I go, okay, come
Hmm.
on, let's keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Because that's
Yep.
more a moment of uncertainty than it is
Mhm.
introspection. I go,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
the
Yeah. You can see that
intros
on his face. Yeah.
yeah. the introspection you want to encourage and the little bit of uncertainty or I don't know if I want to, see if you can just
Hmm.
sort of keep going and not give him much of a break, like kind of harass him gently to keep going.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yep. On
Yeah.
a side note, I've been working on that. I can't remember what you call it, sorry, but basically where you stand in front of them like that and make sure they're always looking at you.
Yep.
And it's
The
helped so much.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really helped connect us. And I've been doing it with Stitch as well. And it's amazing. It just calms them down.
Isn't it amazing? Like I call
Yeah.
it, it's
How
had
did I not
many,
know this 30 years ago?
I know, and I've had it sort of developed out of dire necessity. And it's had many different names. I think now I call it the mental focus exercise. But
Mm,
you're basically either at halt or you walk backwards, and you're just
hmm.
maintaining eye contact more or less, keeping the horse's
Yeah.
mental focus on you. And it really works like blinkers. It's like putting invisible blinkers on a horse. They
Yeah. They
you
just
just
automatically get into your bubble, don't they? And
yeah.
yeah, it's great. And I've often had, heard trainers or whatever say, um, get them focused on you, but I've never known how they do it. Like, what are you talking about? How do you get them focused on you? But that does it. That does it
Yeah.
perfectly.
And it's the gentlest way to build that mental connection with the horse. We're sort of
Mhm.
basically, when we're in front of them, we're providing this massive stimulation that they can focus on. And then we're sort of guiding them with the halter and lead rope. And that's why I walk
Yeah,
backwards if that's what I need to do. And
yeah,
um, and they like that connection. They like shutting out the world and not looking at whatever is bothering them. And so they
mm,
immediately start to calm down. And when we
mhm.
ride, it's the same thing when we ride, but we kind of feel the energy and we watch the ears. So,
Yeah,
like my safety mechanism when I'm riding a horse that has never been ridden or hasn't been ridden in a while is watching the ears tells me where the mind is. And if I don't have
yeah,
one ear pointed back on me in the saddle, then very quickly things can kind of go sideways. And so keeping that
yeah,
ear, that mental focus on me in the saddle is a safety thing as well, because it does
yeah.
calm them down.
When you're in the saddle, how do you get the ear on you? Like, do you jiggle something? Do you move your leg? Do you move or
I
how do you do
typically, it kind of depends on the horse, but the
it?
sort of most obvious babysitting method is to just take one rein and
Hmm.
shorten one rein and begin a turn. So, my
Yep.
first ride on a green horse, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to make random turns left and right in order to keep that ear on me during the first ride. And
Hmm.
and that just helps them stay very focused on the rider and stay calm.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I
Yep.
sort of paused it here, but this is the groundwork version of that. And that mental focus exercise is powerful. I think people maybe read through it sometimes and go, yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
when you try it, it's like, oh my gosh, that really
Oh, it's the
works.
best thing. It's the best thing ever. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could really feel it would give me confidence taking him out somewhere new,
Yeah.
um, and having a bit more ability to keep him calm. Whereas I used to take him out before and he'd be a snorting dragon and it'd be
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
And then I'd be terrified and it would just all snowball from there, really.
No, and that one of the first barns I leased in Florida, I used to take in stallions and colts, and
Yeah.
all my staff was a bunch of 13-year-old girls who all wanted lessons. And that's how I taught the girls to get the stallions in and out from turnout to the stalls was that method.
Yeah, yeah. It's very handy.
Yeah, and it keeps you at a safe distance, knowing what's about to, sort of happen, right?
Hmm.
So I paused it here because I just wanted to look at a little detail in his response. So when you stop, he immediately relaxes because you've obviously done that mental focus exercise. The little bit of
Mm-hmm.
looking left and right and fiddling with the lead rope, that
Mm-hmm.
is different than that internal processing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
A,
So
a bit of
this,
anxiety.
it's a disassociative behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
he's in his mind trying to avoid something a little bit or not sure what to do with
Mm-hmm.
himself. And so the
Yeah.
fact that you just moved on actually was perfect. So you had a
Mm-hmm.
little pause there and you could tell he wasn't really contemplating anything. He was just, fiddling. And then there where he looks away, that would be a good moment where I would challenge him a little to say, no, let's carry on. Even if you have to
Mm-hmm.
walk backwards, try to keep the pace of the walk going, right?
Yep.
And even if you have to walk a little one side or the other and, encourage him a bit, when he perks his head up and gets distracted, you can shift your body more in front of him and say, no, no, we're just going to keep going and we're going to ignore that. And
Yep.
I think he's getting better and better about not slamming on the brakes quite so hard. But there
Yes.
that
Yep.
tendency when he gets maybe a little unstable or a little unsure, he'll
Mm.
it looks like a distraction, but I don't think it's really a distraction. I think it's now
Yeah.
that's even better with his nose in the dirt and moving. He's really just sort of exploring all those back muscles, using his hind legs. Most horses, when they go that deep, will tend to stop. And it's interesting that
Mm-hmm.
he can still move with his nose that deep in the dirt. But I
Yeah.
think that's such an improvement, um, showing that even though we can't see the muscle development, the fact that he's more comfortable and offering this much more forward, even
Mm-hmm.
if taking him out of the arena is helping, the way he was
Mm-hmm.
moving in the arena, I don't think you would have gotten this much out here.
No. No.
So I
I
don't
I
think
took
it's
him back
the,
in the arena. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say I took him back in the arena yesterday, and we struggled to do, and it's not a huge arena. We struggled to do 2 laps each way.
So
Like
he's
he
still,
just stopped.
okay. So then it is two things then. The stimulation of the environment is going
Mm-hmm.
to bring up his energy a little bit. And it could
Yep.
also be he really needs, like, even the amount of turning he has to do in an arena is just too much right now. So he might
Yeah.
need these long, straight lines to be able to just maintain forward. And then
Mm-hmm.
the little bit of sort of extra stimulation from being outside the arena is definitely helping.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe give him just a week out here until he's almost, just walking 100% of the time and then try the arena again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the other
I
thing
can
he has
notice he
out,
sees. Oh,
oh,
sorry.
I was
You go.
just going to say the other thing he has out here that's helping him go forward is the lack of sort of the channel or the corridor. That's why we've been using the fence line
Yes.
is to help him stabilize. So this
Yeah.
is literally giving him more wiggle room and a
Mm-hmm.
longer, straighter line. And he's definitely showing you this is the easier place for him to begin. And it's
Yeah.
really a matter of steps, just like, our watches and Fitbits. He's got to
Yeah.
get in X number of steps maybe before he can handle getting straighter and turning as much as he has to in an arena.
Yeah. 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 I was going to comment on how his back legs, he used to hold them really close together. And now I've noticed when he stops quite often, they look normal, like they're spaced out a bit better.
Yeah. Yes, and that is muscular, absolutely. So even when horses have a very base narrow space between their front legs or their hind legs, that is a muscular weakness. or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a muscular tightness. And so
Yeah.
that's really good. You notice that. And you can see on the straight line, his hind feet are almost tracking directly behind his front feet. So he's staying straighter internally and
Mm-hmm.
putting his nose in the dirt. That
Yeah.
spontaneous long and low posture in motion is telling
Mm-hmm.
you also that he's feeling more stable through his back and hindquarters.
Yeah, yeah. So I was reading well, I'm still reading through all of your guides and whatnot, but one section it talks about how you explore getting him from long and low into balance, how you explore with the speeds, like you slow down or you make them go a bit quicker. So we're not at that stage, are we yet? I shouldn't be exploring that with him. Just let him do the exploring. Don't stop him, like don't slow him down or don't do anything. Just let him go.
Yeah. Like Stitch may
Yeah.
be closer to that piece of the puzzle. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, like where Stitch started in the posture of extension, even though Pablo kind of appeared to have a long neck, he was
Mm-hmm.
really also in the posture of extension,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
he had gotten to a more weakened state than Stitch did. And so that's why we're starting gently with him. And the first transitional posture, when they've been stuck in the posture of extension, is this posture. Like actually, what he's showing you is sort of the full, authentic shift into long and
The
low.
opposite. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, for him to even have this energetic of a walk and stopping infrequently, and then that nose in the dirt version of long and low, they
Mm-hmm.
do that because the rotation of the spine and the alignment of the spine, those two functions that are related to
Mm-hmm.
left-right balance, they begin to stabilize. And that's
Mm-hmm.
actually how we get horses out of the posture of extension into the posture of long and low. Has a little bit to do with hindquarter engagement, but it's mostly a straightness issue.
Yeah. Yep.
And then when you want to start lifting the weight off the forehand, that's when playing with speed is going to start building the braking and pushing mechanisms of the body.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's more directly related to lifting the back and engaging the
Yeah.
hindquarters.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
So
not at that stage, are we yet? So no.
as soon as horses are, when long and low becomes the most prevalent posture during your
Mm-hmm.
work, that's how you know you're ready to move on. What I'm
Okay.
seeing with him is that really sort of authentic long and low while he stayed in motion was maybe, 10% of this video, but
Mm-hmm.
but not even
Yeah.
50% of the time we're looking at.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense? So like there where he
Yeah.
starts, he's starting in a version of extension. It's mild,
Yes.
but that's what it
Yes.
is. So
Yeah.
when the spine pushes downward in extension, it also simultaneously causes, like if my pen is the dorsal tip of the spine, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the spine is pushing downward, it also
Yeah.
creates a side to side rocking or twisting motion
Yeah.
through the spine.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
longer that goes on, the more that's the prevalent posture, it also adds in, if I can't bend my pen, but more
Yeah.
lateral bending,
Yeah.
rotation, and dropping,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Everything's going around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what that does is the outer muscles of the body, and especially around the limbs and the neck, have to really tighten excessively because the core muscles are becoming weaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that Pablo was out of work for a while and you had issues with him in the past anyways, I really suspect he doesn't know. He's been in that posture of extension for such a long time. He doesn't really know
Yeah.
how to get himself out of it. And
Yeah.
he's not as strong as Stitch muscularly. And
No.
so that's why we could see Pablo wiggle, where with Stitch, we didn't see him wiggle until he let go of some tension,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Actually, I'll send you a photo of so Pablo's now 10. I bought him as a 2 year old, and I'll send you a photo. I know that a lot of young horses look goofy anyway, but his body, I think from day dot, he's probably held himself that way. He had a funny little U neck and he just looked odd.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think
And a lot
he's
of
always been that
people,
way.
a lot of people will say it's confirmation, and it's not.
Yeah, yeah. And I've never known how to then help him out of it.
Yeah, because it's not part, like, I can't tell you how many times I was told, oh, she's just an Arabian. That's how she moves to my horse.
Yeah,
And I go,
yeah.
that's not true. And
Mm,
some horses, like horses can have conformation genetically that makes them more predisposed to that posture, but it doesn't mean
hmm.
they're going to spend their life in that posture. And
Yeah, yeah,
like Arabians and horses with what we call high neck sets, I go, genetically, they're more predisposed to that posture, but it's still a posture.
yeah,
It's
yeah. That's
not
it.
confirmation.
Yeah. And if I had have known a bit more, I suppose when I was riding him, I could have obviously helped him out of it. But I was, I suppose, all the trainers that I had were all around getting his head right, his headset right, and trying to put him on the bit, and it was just spiraling. It was just we weren't getting anywhere, and
Yeah.
no wonder.
No, that's not just where you are. That's all around me too. That's the still the most traditional part of training is, get the headset, get walk, trot, canter in 30, 60, 90 days, and you're good to go.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like I almost quit starting young horses for people because that's still the most prevalent way of starting young horses. People get very impatient with how I start young horses. And I go, I just teach them how to balance in the walk before I ever ask them to trot or canter. But
yeah,
that can be months and months of work. And so they go, well, you're
yeah,
not teaching them anything. And so I almost just people call me for a young horse and I go, I don't know if I'm gonna, yeah, I don't know if I want to go there
yeah,
again.
yeah. Just out of interest, do you find that the Western way of starting, or Western riding, I suppose, has a lot less issues of unbalanced horses because they're not so focused on having them on the bit? Like they do kind of ride them around with quite a loose rein. Does that have
Um, I
any weight
think
to it? Not necessarily.
and I think that was really a benefit in my personal experience, sort of wanting to learn horse training. I did quite a lot of Western training and quite a lot of English style training. And there's pros
Mm,
and cons both ways. There's some very good things. Like, I think what I do like a lot about Western training is they're not so dependent on the reins, like a lot of
yeah,
English riding is.
yeah,
And a good, like starting a young horse isn't all that different, Western or English. When I worked with
yeah,
really, really good cowboys, it's gentle. It's not the sort of buck them out and make them do it kind of thing. It's a very gentle process. And the same thing when I saw, English riders, what they call backing the horse. Um, it was like some of it was so quiet. It's like watching grass grow. And
yeah,
but the horses came through it beautifully and they were started beautifully. And so I go, I think the difference is,
yeah,
do we want our horse to hurry up and perform for us, or are we thinking in terms of educating a horse that we want for life? And all of a sudden, those 3 to 6 months spent at the walk doesn't seem like such a long time anymore when you go, I'm going to have this horse
mm,
for 10 years.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So there's the thoughtful expression again. And did I
Yep.
hit the same one? I thought yeah, this
I
is
think
number
no, I
two.
think you're on number two. This is
Yeah, I'm on number two. So especially there where he really lowers his head, when he's fiddling with the lead rope, he's not thinking internally, but like there's that massive yawn I was waiting for, and then the
yes.
head shaking. That
Yep.
massive yawn is like, I always think of it as really digesting a thought, like something, just finally got put away in the file cabinet, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's an integration of something he's learning. And so when he stands there, just like that, ears half out, sleepy look, head down, doesn't want to move, that those would be moments I would just give him the time
Yeah. Okay.
and
Yep.
wait until you'll see what will happen is he'll get distracted, his ears will prick away. You say, okay, back to work we go. Or
Mm-hmm.
he'll lick, chew, yawn, move, and you go, okay, off we go. Or he'll just go from sleepy back to alert. His eyes will open and you'll be like, okay, he's ready to do more. But those huge yawns are so important that you're seeing that. That's like one of those. I had somebody tell me once, it's like a horse sending you flowers and a thank you card when
Oh.
they blow like that or they yawn like that. And
Yeah.
a lot of horses, when they're coming out of, chronic stress where they've been kind of low grade sympathetic nervous system for a long time, that yawning is part of the physical transition of the dominance of the nervous system to the parasympathetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I get quite a bit with Pablo and Stitch. So
Good.
they both yawn and yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, and he may like what I would do at this point is still look at your watch or like if you had a timer,
Mm-hmm.
let's say the goal is 10 minutes of walking. He can stop he can walk 5 minutes, stop for 10 minutes, but then you're going to say, okay, we still need another 5 minutes of walk.
Yeah.
So your
Yeah.
whole training session could take a half an hour or an hour to get 10 minutes of walk, but it's really
Yeah.
only when he's moving is what I would consider the physical part of the work that he absolutely needs. And
Yes.
10 minutes of actual steps would be the first goal. And if that starts to get pretty easy, then bump it up another 5 minutes. As soon as that seems relatively easy for him, go for 15 minutes of steps.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, you could spend a whole hour with him because all this processing is important, the thinking is important, the stopping and resting is important, the mental focus on you is important. All of those are aspects of the relationship and the training, but
Mm-hmm.
physically, he needs to get his steps in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's lovely. And is he headed back home this direction now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny that. Yep.
Yeah. So he's not rushing, but if that kind of helps the motivation for the walking time, you may be slow to go out and quick to make it back, but
Yes.
you
Yeah.
get the benefit no matter what. So
Yeah. Yep.
that's about as dry as my place looks right now, too.
We've just had rain yesterday, and it's been a really dry summer, and summer started October last year. So I was just
Yeah.
about out there doing a rain dance. It was, yeah, so dry.
No, and our dry season is the winter, and we're just coming into the spring, and we've had a
Ah.
couple of good rains, but it's like all my grass came up and now it's crunchy. We desperately
Oh,
need some
okay.
rain.
Yeah.
But yeah, my driveway looks exactly like that right now.
Yeah. So dry.
No, this is fantastic. Like And was this the first time you took him down the driveway, or have you been doing that more regularly?
I've been doing it more regularly. He, to begin with, it's probably more me. I'm sure someone else could lead him and he'd be fine, but it's quite a big deal for me to take him out because he can get big and a bit, even though he doesn't look that. But to me, he can get big and scary. Like
Oh
when
no,
he gets scared.
that is absolutely the problem with all horses that won't go
Mm,
forward the way he doesn't go forward.
yeah,
The right stimulus, and it's like flipping a coin, and they are out of
yeah,
control and can't stop. And that's
yeah.
very typical,
Yeah,
and it's
and he
scary.
he doesn't see me. He doesn't even know I'm there.
Mm-mm.
And he's quite likely to jump on me. So it gets a bit nerve-wracking. So I have been yeah taking him out up the driveway, and he's
Yeah.
getting better. My aim is to go all the way. We've got a track around our property, so my aim one day is to go all the way around,
Oh,
take him for a
excellent.
walk. Yeah,
Excellent. No,
yeah,
and I think it's really good. You have an extra long lead rope, you've got a rope halter, and you've got the flag. So all
mm,
of those give you the tools. And
mm-hmm,
when he gets distracted and shortens that neck and looks at something where you go, that energy is going the wrong way. He's starting to
mm-hmm,
move away from calmness, whether it's tension or anxiety, doesn't matter. That warning sign is where you want to step in front of him and do the mental focus exercise and go, do
yeah,
not even look over there. Stay with me.
yeah,
And a lot of
yeah,
times, like that look there, and you had the perfect response. You said, no, don't look, come back. And then if you
yes,
can keep him moving, even better. But that
yeah,
that will divert more disasters than you can count. Like just catching it at that moment and
yes.
interrupting it and going
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then if he is going to blow up, all you have to do is keep him off of you and hang on to the rope. And he can blow up in
yeah,
a circle around you. He can be at the end
yeah,
of the rope. And so at least you can stay safe while he, loses his mind if that ends up happening.
yeah. That's why I take the flag just in case.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're
Yeah,
right. They
yeah.
they don't because he's not good at forward. If you add adrenaline to that, he has no control. And so you will
No,
get hurt, he wouldn't mean to hurt you, but you would be hurt all the same because he just doesn't
yeah,
have good control over his own body.
yeah, yeah. He's all over the place.
Mhm.
What's your tips on so when you're trying to get their attention and their ears are backwards, so they're focusing on what's behind them, do you kind of just keep perhaps bumping the lead rope until their ears come on you?
I would put in a little left or right stimulation.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
like
Okay.
if they're pinning their ears at you, I would back them
Oh
away
yeah.
from me. If they're
Yes,
just
yes.
focused behind them,
The
it sort of,
boogeyman's behind them. Yep.
yeah, if the neck is tense and it's something behind them, the safest thing you can do is make a turn, like not quite a
Mm-hmm.
U-turn, but just a little step sideways, because
Yes.
if it's something in their blind spot, they can panic. And if you just kind of get one eye turned
Yes.
sideways and they can see it, then they usually will calm down a little.
Yeah. Rather than going forward over the top of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And you're kind of at the same time setting them up to turn and circle around you if they do explode. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but
And
all
what's
that
your
yawning
tips?
is great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Um, what are your tips for when you're walking and you want the ear on you? Do you kind of just if their ears go one ear goes away, do you jiggle the lead rope or do you have any tips on that?
Um, on the ground, I do that mostly in this situation. I literally walk backwards.
Okay.
I literally walk backwards.
Yep.
And so I would be out in front of him if I needed his full attention and I still had to get from point A to point B. I would walk
Yep.
from point A to point B myself, walking backwards with the horse coming towards me directly.
Yep. Okay.
Um,
Yep.
if I'm lunging or if I'm walking, like hand walking or on the side, I'm really just going to look for that inside ear. I don't necessarily need both ears, but I need the ear closest to me pointed at me if he gets
Yeah.
distracted, if he gets anxious. It,
Right. So if he's not anxious or distracted and he's kind of just walking alongside me, but his ears are up front, that's okay?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because
Okay.
it's really what you're watching for is it's like when the ears prick away and the energy leaves a calm state. That's
Yeah.
our,
Okay.
sort of danger flag. We're getting the
Yeah.
yellow flag on that, right?
Yeah.
And if we do nothing, then they're going to spin a little story in their head very quickly and they're going to
Yeah.
react before we know what happened. So
Yeah.
we watch the ears, but we're sort of keeping an ear on us as a way to say, don't look there. Look at me. I'm going to keep you safe. If you focus on me and I feel safe, you can feel safe. And so it's sort of a way to bring the energy to a calm state when they're not there,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
right?
That's good.
And so it's like, even on a young horse, I'm not, it kind of depends. Like if I'm on a horse that I know is prone to blow up quickly, I might be a little bit more on top of keeping an ear on me. If the horse is
Uh-huh.
mostly calm, like what I'm seeing Pablo do in this video, I go, I don't
Yes.
have to be a dictator about it. He can take in his environment and look where he wants. As long as he's
Yeah.
calm and it's not
Uh-huh.
making him fearful, then I don't need to say anything about it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Because he might be, where's the dog? Or my cats are always photobombing my video and running under the horse's legs and hanging out in the riding arena. And sometimes my cats drop out of trees randomly. And so it's like,
Very helpful. So helpful.
yeah,
They're just testing your training, aren't they?
yeah. They think my big trees are their private cat toys.
That's cute.
So yeah, this looks great. And so like there, when the ears are sort of softly pointing away from you, the expression
Uh-huh.
is, the energy is calm, the expression is soft. It's like, yeah, he can take everything in. Of course, I'm not going to be picky. And it's
Yeah.
really if he started to look at something and the energy escalates, I'm going to step in really quickly and get the attention back on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he's sort of, I don't know what we would say, ADD or just kind of looking all over and not focusing on his job of getting better at walking, then I
Uh-huh.
might ask for his attention to be on me instead of the environment so he can learn to focus.
Yeah.
Um, but those are, it's just a strategy like you found that helps the horse focus on one thing because by nature, they are multitaskers and they focus on many things. That's part of their
Uh-huh.
survival, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to learn to focus on just the rider is a learned skill for every horse.
Yeah.
At whatever age they learn it is when they learn it, but it doesn't come naturally to a horse to focus on one thing. And so that's
No.
why we can cultivate it as a learned skill. And it's particularly useful if they start to get worried or unsure or afraid. So,
Yeah. It's
mm,
just amazing that it's kind of missing from a lot of the
yeah.
basic training people do. It's like it should be, 1.1 of the lesson.
Yeah, and it's funny. I can't remember even, I can't literally can't remember where I learned that.
Mm.
It might have been from some of the old cowboys I worked with, because I certainly didn't learn it in the hunter ring. But everybody
No.
said,
No.
get the horse to pay attention to you, but nobody helps us
Tells you how.
interpret it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or how
Yeah.
do I do
I've heard
that?
it. totally. I've heard it 100 times. Don't let him look over there. Make sure he's concentrating on you. I'm thinking, okay, but what do you mean? How do I do that?
Yeah,
So if I was riding him or whatever, I'd perhaps or even on the ground, I'd turn their head once, but then not realize the focus that you have to have and the just doing it continuously, so they're actually looking at you the whole time. I just
yeah,
turn their head once and then they'll just be looking back around, and yeah,
yeah.
we just
And that's the thing. It's like we have to learn to concentrate, to ask them to concentrate. And a
yeah,
lot of times, if we're not focused on the horse and learning to read the energy, the body language, the expression, what the ears and eyes and mouth are telling us, then we're kind of oblivious. And then
yeah,
I get the description of all of a sudden my horse blew up. And I said, well, there are probably several more subtle signs. And
yeah,
that's what we can learn to step in and sort of redirect around a big fat problem by
yeah,
just keeping the horse's focus on us and we keep our focus on the horse. And
yeah.
just also think about with both horses while you're doing this much groundwork, I also look at groundwork from the perspective of always trying to make it a riding simulation from the horse's perspective. So,
Mm-hmm,
whatever you do with the halter and lead rope is your bridle and rein. Whatever
mm-hmm,
you do with the flag is your leg aid. And whatever,
mm-hmm.
however you organize your own body on the ground is your seat in the saddle. And if you could add in some mindfulness of that, and you're already going to figure out on the ground, oh, this is what I would need to do under saddle. Because how do you get him
Yes,
going right now? You use one rein on one side and you turn him a little bit and step him sideways. And in the saddle, we automatically go to the whip, the spur, the legs. And I go, but I use this in the saddle all the time when horses get stuck.
yes,
I bend the neck and I ask them to turn. And once the feet unstick, they go forward.
yes, yep,
And
yep,
so, literally everything you do from the ground, if you think of it as my body is my seat, my whip is my
mm-hmm,
leg, and my lead rope and halter is my lead rope is my rein.
yeah, yep.
And so then it really starts to show you what to do
Can
under
transition
saddle
easy.
when like whatever's working on the ground will work under
Mm-hmm.
saddle typically.
Yeah, yeah. I have tried yesterday when I was back in the arena. I did try to see if he was willing to go forward off the tap of the whip, but he wouldn't move at all. So
Yeah,
we're back
not
to, I
yet.
feel like I'm kind of dragging him around a bit at the moment. But yeah, hopefully as that
Yeah.
improves, I'll be able to get him going off the whip.
Yeah, no, you
Tap
are.
obviously not.
And right now you're sort of, the personal trainer for a unwilling client or,
Yeah.
it's like
Yep.
but he's doing great and you're very patient with him. And actually, in these videos, I have to say, it looks like he's enjoying this more than any video I've seen in the past. Like he kind of
Yeah.
likes his little time, even though it's hard for him. He needs some thinking breaks. It seems so simple and rudimentary, but you can tell from his response that this is difficult for him. We don't know
Yeah.
why it's difficult, but we know it's
Hmm.
difficult. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so just being
Yeah.
patient with him and building him up slowly it's going to keep gaining what I want to say, gaining more momentum.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it's going to be really interesting this next couple of weeks when he's on these tablets to see if that kind of, if it is pain related, if that kind of
Yeah,
um that and see what happens. Yeah.
because if you see a big difference on the medication, like he suddenly can walk 10 minutes without stopping, and he can suddenly
Mm-hmm.
make a couple of laps in the arena without stopping, then I would say there's a significant pain issue going on. Not sure what it is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so then you can start to sleuth out this or that and kind of see if
Mm-hmm.
what the Previcox won't make any difference at all for is if it's muscle weakness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or if it's something like Lyme's or what we have EPM,
Yep.
excuse me. If it's that type of illness that's creating systemic discomfort, you won't
Mm-hmm.
see much of a difference, if at all, on the Previcox.
Okay. Yeah, it's
It's
going to be interesting.
Previcox is really good for like musculoskeletal pain, like
Mm-hmm.
arthritis, sore muscles, weak joints, rusty joints, I call them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Previcox is really good for. With the Lyme's
Yep.
and EPM, you might get a very minor improvement as like kind of anti-inflammatory in general. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's just muscle weakness, you won't get much of an improvement at all. And so that,
Yeah.
putting
Yep.
him on something like the Previcox is part of, and then working him and seeing what changes. It's
Yeah,
kind of
figuring it
like
out. Yep.
it's the owner's side of diagnostics that we can do.
Yeah. 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 And one of the podcasts that you had, you were talking about neck arthritis, and how I suppose working them eventually, working them in the correct balance that kind of helps overcome it. So what are I mean, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but if it is pain related, um, and I suppose it's only time will tell whether or not we have to do anything about it, or whether or not the getting his body better will kind of help
Hmm.
itself. Does that make sense? Maybe.
Yes, and that's the thing. I go, if I see a reasonable kind of progress, starting with wherever we're starting. Oh, hang on a second. I have a frog in my throat.
Yep.
So knowing he's starting kind of at ground zero with it's just like when I start rehabbing lame horses, I'm starting below zero, right?
Yep.
So this is a strategy. Everything we're doing with Pablo are the strategies I would use for, rehabbing lameness issues once I have the vet's clearance for work. So changing the coordination and the function of the body to utilize it efficiently. Because the body's a closed system, when the parasympathetic nervous system is dominant most of the time, that's one of the most powerful ways we can help our horses heal from anything. That is the
Hmm.
rest and digest state of the nervous system. And when they're in chronic stress or low grade anxiety, low grade tension, and the sympathetic nervous system is dominant, the immune system is basically suppressed. The digestion slows down. All the blood and circulation is going to the limbs for the fight flight response. So it's a global change in the body. That's why this whole learning frame of mind concept is important to their overall health as well as the
Hmm.
training. And then the same thing with the mechanical coordination you're going to learn, that I call basic balance, which is putting together four different spinal functions, and I work with the spine because, like the nervous system, the precise use of the spine and coordination of all those vertebra is what dictates the weight distribution through the legs, the muscle use throughout the body, the amount of force going through different parts of the body, and the the balance means the body is being used according to its inherent design. So it has the right
Hmm.
amount of muscle tension here and the right amount of muscle tension there. And the weight distribution is mostly here and not there. And so that also healthy function is healthy function of the entire system. So we're going to improve circulation. We're going to improve digestion. We're going to improve the lymphatic flow. We're going to improve circulation out to the outer muscles and the capillaries. It'll improve hoof growth. Like it's so systemic.
Yeah.
that
Wow.
it's supporting the horse's health, and we need the vet and the farrier and we need a good saddle. But the piece that
Hmm.
I think, my specialty is to empower horse owners to go, what we do with them every day has a
Mm.
massive impact on their health.
Yeah, definitely.
And so
Yep.
if we're not training them for feeling safe and using their body efficiently, then we're sort of creating wear and tear whenever we ride them, rather than rather than sort of strengthening the system, we're weakening the
Hmm.
system. And there's
Yeah.
not a lot of information out there. Like 25 years of doing this full time with five different mentors, and
Hmm.
it was hard information to find. It's not easily available.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't
So,
it? Because it just makes so much sense. It's like the missing link, and yet
yeah,
it's
and you're not
not.
alone, that your superpower is your kindness and your compassion for your horses and wanting to do the right thing. But a lot of times I'm sure you were criticized for that, that you're too soft, you're too gentle, you're not
Oh,
asking enough of your horses.
all the time.
It's yeah. And
Yeah, it was hard.
that's and so it just, kind of becomes this problem because the information that is out there doesn't feel right. But
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to find the right
Yeah.
information. And I was just stubborn enough and fiery enough that when somebody told me my horse couldn't do it or I couldn't do it, I'm like, watch me. I'm going to go figure out
Yeah.
how.
Yeah. Well, I truly feel like I've been going round and round in circles for 5 years,
Mm,
probably longer, 7 years, I'd say. So, yeah.
yeah. No, and that's what sort of makes me laugh too, because I used to be really shy about putting a lesson like this out in public, because here we are having a lesson with you leading your horse down your driveway, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but he's at maximum capacity. That is just
Yeah.
the truth of the matter. He is at
Yeah.
maximum capacity to do this and to do it
Yeah.
in a way that strengthens the system rather than depleting the system.
Yeah.
Because you
So,
could certainly take your flag and you could probably make him trot down the driveway under saddle. But
yeah.
is that going to strengthen his system or is that going to weaken the system? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's I I just feel like there's maybe way more of us out there than I thought there were, because I
Yeah.
I used
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
really
And it's,
shy about showing these lessons where I'm helping someone walk their horse down the driveway.
no, it's so important, isn't it? Like, could you imagine putting a saddle on him now and trying, just having a lesson? I could just imagine, like kick him up, move him on,
Yeah,
get him trotting. Oh God,
yeah,
it'd just be horrendous.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it happens all the
Yeah.
time.
It
Eh,
happens
eh,
all the time. And it just never, I knew in my gut that there was so many things wrong with it all. But
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, we're on the track now.
No, and like I said, he just looks like when he is going and he's not thinking or getting distracted, he finally looks like he's enjoying the walk.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah.
definitely giving you a lot more forwardness than what we were looking at in the arena. So
Hmm.
both of you will feel better about that. And there's a lot
Yeah,
of reasons
yeah,
it's easier on the driveway. There's no fence line. It's a much longer, straighter line with easier turns and not hard corners. And there's more to look at. So it kind of brings his energy up. So there's just
yeah.
lots of pluses.
I've got a bit too much sand in my arena as well, so it's quite boggy, which is not great. I need to take some out.
That might make it hard for him too. Like if he's muscularly weak, the deeper sand can really make him work pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah. So then for us to work on for this month, obviously getting the steps up like you've suggested.
Hmm.
If he really progresses with his steps, shall I then attempt, originally how we were going to do the walking along the fence line in the arena with me standing at his shoulder, trying to kind of
Not yet.
straighten him up? Not
Nope.
yet.
I
Okay.
would
Oh,
I would expect at least one more month.
yep.
What I would look for from Pablo would be um, I would probably mostly not even bother with the arena for the first week, maybe two from
Okay.
from now.
Yep. Yep.
And take him out in the driveway. And what you're
Mm-hmm.
looking for, give him his full thinking break as long as he's internal,
Yep.
and sort of go by your watch when you can
Mm-hmm.
get when it takes 30 minutes to get 10 minutes of walking, then stay
Yep.
on the driveway. And
Yep.
what you're looking for on the driveway is that one day you just get 10 consecutive minutes of walking with zero halts,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yep.
And even if you get 10 minutes of walking in 20 minutes of time, where it's about
Mm-hmm.
50% stopping and 50% walking, I would
Mm-hmm.
I would bump his walking time up to 15 minutes. And the first goal I would have is when he can walk for 20 or 30 minutes with maybe one halt or two, but pretty minimal, then I would
Mm-hmm.
try the arena again. And if
Okay.
he by then, if he can walk 20 or 30 minutes on the driveway without much stopping, if at all, then he'll be
Mm-hmm.
able to make it probably 5 or 10 minutes in the arena with some stopping.
Okay.
And so
Yep.
then I would build it up in the arena. Maybe we could play with getting him, like I definitely would put him up against the fence line. And already that fence line becoming a restriction and the hard turns of the arena would be the next physical challenge once he can walk on the driveway for 20 to 30 minutes without stopping a lot.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, because this
Okay.
walk
That's
that
good.
you have right this moment on the video,
Yep.
before we can do hand walking, he should be able to sustain that walk with you leading him on the driveway for 30 minutes as a no-brainer. That should just be so easy for him. It happens 3 days in a row.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And
Yep.
that means he's physically better prepared because as easy as I thought, the first step where we didn't know what he was going to do, I said, let's start with hand walking. It might help him get more forward,
Yeah.
or it
Yeah.
might be too challenging, definitely too challenging. So we fell back to leading, and even that was challenging. And you cleverly thought of the driveway, which was a great idea. And that seems to be working. This is where you're getting the most steps and the most
Yeah.
thoughtfulness.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so I would just build up the step time or the actual walking time in the driveway where it's easiest for him, knowing that the first 2 weeks, maybe even three, he's still going to need these thinking breaks and
Yeah. Okay.
give him the thinking break when he wants it.
Yeah.
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 Don't
Yeah.
give him a break if it's just distraction or a little bit of worry or when he's sort of, being a
Yeah.
nudge, like chewing on the lead
Yeah.
rope, that kind of thing, get him going again. But
Yeah.
if he's having that internal introspective moment, let him have it as long as he likes.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Actually, when you choose on the lead rope, what's your thoughts? Do you bump them so they don't do it?
I kind of, take it on a individual basis. It's because you got to pick your battles sometimes. Um,
Yeah.
and it kind of depends. Like the reason they do it is it's a
I think like it.
disassociation behavior,
Yeah.
disassociative. So it's the same reason some people twirl their hair or like a nervous tick kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And all it tells you is it's kind of a sign of uncertainty. That's about the best way I could say. He's not really scared, but it's like, oh,
Yeah.
if I distract myself with this thing over here, I don't have to think about that thing over there. Or kind
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
somebody in the middle of a conversation and, starts texting on their phone. That's the same thing. So
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a
Makes
dis
sense.
yeah, it's a disconnect. And
Yep.
so if he needs that for a second and it's not too bad. It might just be part of his little personal process. And so I might not say anything. And if it becomes
Mm-hmm.
kind of obsessive compulsive, if he's
Mm-hmm.
using it like a crutch, then I might go, yeah, let's find something else to do.
Yeah. Yep.
But for him, it's just a little bit of like insecurity is what I'm seeing in the video. It's no big deal. I wouldn't even bother to address it.
Okay. Yeah.
And if he's doing that, it's the same thing as him looking around. He's not really having a thinking break, so that might be one of the signs that you need to get him walking again. Is if he's
Get
standing
moving.
there fiddling with the lead rope, you may as well be walking.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's looking really good. So
Good,
let me
good.
know how it goes with if you notice a difference, because whether you notice a
Yeah.
difference or don't, the Previcox will be a really good diagnostic tool. And
Yeah.
then,
Going to tell us one way or another, isn't it?
yeah, it'll tell you something. It'll help you
Mm-hmm.
narrow
Yeah.
things down. And
Yeah.
oh, and then did you also look at that anti-inflammatory diet that I think
Yes.
I sent
So
you the link?
yeah, you did. Yep. So I've just finishing off my muesli at the moment, and that does have a bit of corn in there. So as
Mhm.
soon as that's gone, we'll be fine. So at the moment they get fed oat and chaff, loosened chaff, lupin pellets, copra, which I think you'd call cool stance. I think that might be
Uh-huh.
the
Yep.
brand,
Yep.
copra. Um, um, and just a cupful morning and night of that muesli. But I'll once that's finished and that'll be done this week. I won't buy any more of that.
Yeah, so that's
And they get
basically the diet that she's recommending is pretty much what you're on, other than the muesli.
yeah, the muesli. Yeah, so I'll take the muesli out and they get at lib hay. Obviously, there's no grass in our paddock, so they get
Yeah.
hay 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're on that digestive EQ. I don't know if that's an Australian thing or worldwide, but that's it helps with their digestion and ulcers and things, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a toxin binder as well. So they're on that, and some
Great.
salt and copper and zinc, and that's about it.
Oh, yeah. So then you don't have, yeah, no, because in America, especially on the East Coast, it's like everybody's on these bagged feeds that are full of wheat midlands and soy hulls, and
Uh,
it's all
yeah,
like all of those. And there's no bagged feed I could buy, premix feed, that didn't have almost all five of those ingredients in it. And
yeah.
when I switched my horses, we call them hay pellets and what do they call chaff? We call it something else, but anyways, hay cubes, hay pellets, chaff.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
of course yeah, so we actually import the copra, the cool stance from you guys. It
Oh, is that
actually,
right?
yeah, it ships over from Australia.
Wonder where we get the
Mhm.
coconuts from. Don't
I
know.
figured they grew somewhere, maybe northern Australia
Yeah.
in the jungle.
Yeah, maybe in Queensland that's quite tropical up there, or maybe we
Hmm.
get it from we probably import it from Asia, I'd imagine,
That
and
could
then
be.
yeah, and then produce it. Yeah. It smells lovely. It smells like chocolate cake mix.
Yeah. Yeah, I have two horses in my barn on it, and he's one
Mm.
horse that had allergies to like every known horse food. It was just he was
Yeah.
allergic to everything.
Yeah.
Ironically, except alfalfa. And he's a quarter horse from a bloodline that notoriously could not eat alfalfa. And he has so many
Ah,
food allergies, that's all he can eat is alfalfa. And I found the copra and he wasn't allergic to it. And so he's been on that forever.
wow. Yeah. I love it. That's great food. Yeah.
Hmm.
A lot of people say it's not natural. Horses don't eat coconuts. I'm thinking, well,
Horses eat whatever's
um,
in front of them.
exactly. And I was so happy when I listened to that podcast and the nutritionist, I can't remember the lady's name, but the nutritionist said that yeah, the cool stance. I'm thinking, yes, I knew it. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and the horse in my barn that has all these food allergies, he was actually on the exact diet she had recommended. and it was because he had so many allergies, and I ended up switching the rest of the horses to that same diet, and it really made a big difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
definitely. So
okay, I
yeah,
think like
lovely.
I'm also happier now seeing him and seeing this video because I was a little worried when I got your email too that he
Yeah,
was
sorry. Very dramatic.
well, that he wasn't making progress and that he sounded like he was getting a bit worse to be touched. And so
Mm,
that's why I suggested look at inflammation, that's the diet. Look at limes,
mhm.
look at, limes and EPM are both sort of these systemic, hard to diagnose things that you have to do blood work for to know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
but and then the pain relief, putting him on an NSAID temporarily, that will tell you a lot. And
yes, yeah.
and
And, and I haven't ruled out the Lyme's disease, even though my vet said highly unlikely. But obviously, if we don't get any progress with the tablets, then yeah, we might be back at looking at Lyme's and
yeah.
yeah, I'll request again.
Yeah, and I go, at a certain point, horse owners just have to say, well, humor me, you know.
Yeah, I'll just pay for it anyway. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Only because some of the areas I go to in the US, the Lyme's is really epidemic. And
Hmm.
so I knew quite a lot of horses and actually people who have had Lyme's. And the weirdest thing about Lyme's disease is that it's sort of like inflammation. It doesn't show up the same way in all
Mm,
horses. And
yeah,
it shows up with vastly, vastly different symptoms and problems. And so there's just certain, like I've learned to see some of the warning signs when horses aren't progressing through the training because there's a certain norm, no matter where we start, there's a little bit of progress right away that we start to see coming
yeah,
in. And like
yeah,
the way that Stitch's body went from, he was sort of a tight little stiff ball of energy into this relaxed, loosey-goosey muscle noodle. That's more normal for the amount of time you had put into it to see that
yeah,
drastic of a change.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. On a good note, yesterday I no, not yesterday, sorry, the day before,
Oops.
I got Stitch going forward, long reining for the first time. You know how we're
Oh,
going around in circles and
excellent.
backwards and everywhere but forward, but we managed to go forward, so I was so happy.
Oh, good.
So
Good.
hopefully within the next 2 weeks, and by the time we meet for Stitch, hopefully we'll be progressing quite well with
Oh, good.
our long reining.
And did you
Yeah.
find the long rain video in our Facebook group?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yes. Thank you. Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Watching
Yeah.
that. So
Because that can
it's just
help a
me
bit.
coordinating myself and also I think because of his level of defensiveness still, when I'm a bit close to him, that kind of comes into it gets a bit challenging when I'm trying to stand close to him to walk alongside him
Yeah.
with the long reins. He's then kind of coming in at me, not attacking me, like, just bugger off, don't be so close kind of thing. And then I'm pushing him out, and then it goes all a bit pear shaped. But I've
Well,
managed
think
to
of
kind of
it
just,
like that's the beauty of the long reins is kind of like the lunge line. When you have the whip, you're using the whip to push him away. He can do what he wants
uh-huh,
at the end of the rope. So when
yeah,
you have the long reins, even if you're close, as soon as he bends his neck to look at you, and especially with a
uh-huh,
snarky expression, you have that opposite rein to say you can't do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so you just really use the reins. You can use the reins for all the purposes you would for riding. So you use the reins to teach him to keep his neck straight. You use the reins for steering. And then
yeah,
eventually, once things are rolling a little bit, we'll use the reins to improve the balance. But right now, you're using the reins to say, you can't bite me even if I'm close because I have an outside rein. Um, and you're using the reins to just steer while you get them going forward.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's the benefit of being closer. You might have to use more rein aids, but it's sort of like more like riding where the reins have a quicker action. And so
Mm.
you can be pretty quick if you're not looping up all that long rein in your hand and you're just holding what you need between your hand and his head, then you just really
Mm.
use them. You use them just like riding reins and you can be that quick.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So once perhaps once he's going forward with the long reins, I'll then attempt again up close. Because do you find up close, do you get any more benefit keeping their body straight kind of up close as opposed to at the back with the long reins? Do you think
No,
there's any difference?
not
No,
not at
same.
all. Yeah.
Okay.
No, the
All
only
right.
benefit, the only benefit of being closer is for us to manage the reins when the horse is being a little bit evasive and tricky.
Yeah, okay.
Because
Yeah.
the farther away we are, it's harder to adjust the length of rein we need as quickly. And it's like we have to have the precise amount. The farther we go, the more precise we have to be in the tension on the reins. The
Yes.
closer we are, the more sort of sloppy we can be. They can be a bit loose, but we don't, they're not stepping on them or getting between the legs. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're learning and we're sort of learning to put that right amount of tension in the reins, or even if I'm working with a tricky horse, it's just I can be faster and more effective if I'm physically closer. And as soon as I get
Mm.
the horse going, the distance doesn't matter. It's just
Yeah, okay.
when you're dealing with the shenanigans of trying to kind of get them going and get them
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, that's the only time being closer is just more effective
Yeah, yeah,
for us, not
yeah,
the horse.
yeah, yeah. That's it. Actually, I better go. I've got calls coming in from
Yep.
work. They're
Yep.
haunting me.
Okie
Yeah. All
dokes.
right. Well, thank you so much. That's great. And I'll let you know how I go anyway with Pablo, and we'll see you in a fortnight.
Excellent. I hope to see you next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I'll have my camera fixed by then. I'll get IT
Okay.
to help me out. All right.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
All right.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.